Typical selfish. You think
Damn things off!
Deep in the mist of the ancient forest, a curse spreads through man and beast alike. Princess Mononoke isn't just an animated tale, it's a haunting meditation on rage, balance, and survival. Every rustle of leaves hides spirits, every shadow conceals a god's wrath. Behind this masterpiece lies a saga of pain, precision, and obsession, a film born from sleepless artists and a director who nearly gave everything to capture nature's fury. Today, we step into that storm and uncover 20 strange and mesmerizing facts about Princess Mononoke that reveal the unseen world behind one of the most powerful animated stories ever created. The idea for Princess Mononoke began with a lone drawing, a fierce girl crouched beside a wolf, her face smeared with blood. It wasn't created as a concept for a movie, but as a thought, a whisper from the wild. The girl's expression, half defiance, half sorrow, haunted its creator. Over time, that image evolved into a question. What would happen if nature itself fought back? Every detail of the film stemmed from this primal sketch. The wolf tribe, the gods, even the iron bullets, all grew from the emotional truth hidden in that single piece of art. It represented innocence forced to defend itself against civilization's endless hunger. By the time it reached the screen, that one girl had transformed into San, the forest's vengeful heartbeat. The image that started as a quiet drawing became the pulse of a cinematic legend, proof that one brushstroke can awaken an entire mythology. The kodama, the tiny tree spirits, are among the most iconic images of the film. Their ghostly rattling heads and blank faces appear adorable, but the artists designed them to balance awe with unease. Each spirit was drawn to mimic the purity of untouched nature, yet their stillness was meant to remind viewers of the silence that comes after something sacred dies. Animators based their movements on the irregular twitch of candle flames and the way small animals freeze when sensing danger. The sound engineers layered insect noises and wooden clicks to make their voices echo through the forest like whispers of lost souls. Their glow wasn't light, but suggestion, a sign that life itself was watching. Even their sudden vanishing was symbolic, representing how the spiritual world retreats as humanity intrudes. The result was an unforgettable paradox. Creatures simultaneously cute and unsettling, guardians who smile as they disappear into the breath of the trees. When designing the wolf goddess Moro and her children, the animation team spent months observing real wolves in nature preserves. They studied how packs communicate with subtle ear twitches, muscle tension, and silent stares. The result wasn't fantasy, it was truth refined. Moro's design blended these animal traits with the nobility of a shaman. She was fierce, yet maternal, cold, yet protective. Her voice was crafted to sound timeless, neither human nor beast, but a bridge between both. Sound designers even mixed growls with whispers to give her words weight, as though the forest itself were speaking. Every movement, from a blink to a snarl, carried dual meaning: predator and parent. In every frame, she embodies the tension between love and violence, protection and destruction. Watch closely, and you'll see her blink only when calm, never in threat. That small detail reveals everything about her character's power. If you felt Moro's voice carried ancient wisdom, drop a comment below and like this video. She's still one of cinema's most commanding spirits. The corruption spreading through Ashitaka's arm isn't just fantasy, it's allegory. The director wanted to capture the slow poison of progress, how every human invention carries the shadow of destruction. The black tendrils crawling across his skin represent greed, guilt, and technology consuming humanity from within. To animate the curse, artists filmed ink dissolving in water, then traced its liquid chaos frame by frame, giving it a disturbing organic pulse. The curse strengthens him, but also shortens his life, a direct reflection of human industry's duality. Even his bow, a traditional weapon of defense, becomes a tool of death when guided by rage. Every time the curse flares, it's the price of advancement demanding payment. It's not evil, it's inevitability. The film asks one simple question: if power itself is the sickness, can compassion be the cure? The terrifying image of the boar god turning into a mass of writhing worms wasn't fantasy. It was drawn from a real phenomenon. The artists studied footage of animals overtaken by parasitic infections, where entire bodies appear to crawl as the host dies. It's grotesque, but it reveals how nature suffers in silence. The production team used hundreds of overlapping transparent layers to animate each worm by hand. The sound of the boar's scream was mixed from pigs, elephants, and distorted metal, symbolizing flesh merging with machine. The result isn't just horror, it's empathy. The director said he wanted audiences to feel compassion for even the monsters. Those worms aren't villains, they're pain given form. The corruption that consumes the boar is humanity's guilt crawling back into the wild. It's one of the most unsettling and beautiful visual metaphors ever hand-drawn. To capture the sacred beauty of the forest, background artists spent weeks hiking through untouched mountain regions, sketching moss-covered roots, misty waterfalls, and ancient cedars. They brought back samples of lichen, branches, and soil for color accuracy. Unlike previous animated films, they refused to stylize nature. Each leaf was painted to feel tangible, alive, damp. When sunlight filters through the canopy, it's not romantic, it's reverent. The light shifts with subtle realism because the team measured real shadow movement using mirrors in the woods. The forest in the film breathes because it was drawn from life, not imagination. Every frame became an act of worship. The goal wasn't to create a setting, but a living God. Watching it feels like stepping into a world that existed long before humans and might outlast them still. Rather than relying solely on musical scoring, the sound team layered the ambient noises of real forests, streams, cicadas, wind through cedar branches, recorded in remote Japanese valleys. They captured hundreds of natural loops, mixing them into the soundscape so subtly that most viewers never realize half the music is organic noise. Even footsteps were replaced with crushed leaves gathered from live forests. The low hum beneath scenes of tension isn't synthesized, it's wind through hollow bark slowed down. This blending of real sound with fantasy atmosphere gave the world its pulse. The composer later said that the forest already had its own song. I just made sure we listened. The result makes every moment feel suspended between dream and truth. A soundscape so immersive, it feels like the forest itself is breathing beside you. To animate San, the wolf girl, the team combined ballet choreography with primal wildlife reference footage. Her posture mirrors that of a predator rather than a human child, head low, limbs tense, always ready to leap. Her running cycles were drawn from footage of wolves and large cats, especially the way they move silently but explosively. The animator responsible for her fight scenes spent weeks studying self-defense stances to mix grace with ferocity. Even her breathing patterns were adjusted to match wild rhythm. Short bursts during motion, long exhales before attack. Every frame of San is contradiction. She's delicate, but she kills. She's human, but never tamed. That fusion made her iconic. When she wipes her face with blood, it's not horror, it's ritual, a merging of species. She isn't pretending to be an animal. She's proof that the boundary between human and nature never truly existed. The women of Irontown weren't fantasy creations. They were modeled after the outcasts of history: widows, former prostitutes, and disabled women who built their own communities on the edges of civilization. The director discovered records of women who worked in iron forges, carrying molten ore and hammering steel when men refused to do such labor. Their strength fascinated him. Every clang of the forge in the film is symbolic defiance, each spark a heartbeat of survival. Lady Eboshi's leadership was drawn from matriarchs who defied tradition and made progress their faith. But the irony remains, progress built from compassion still burns the forest it depends on. The town's furnaces aren't villains. They're desperate prayers in the language of fire. The women's laughter between shifts, the way they share rice balls mid-work, that's not fiction. It's the rhythm of the forgotten laborers who once kept whole villages alive. If you found yourself rooting for Lady Eboshi despite everything, like this video, because empathy, not perfection, is what makes great storytelling. The Great Forest spirit was created to embody both creation and destruction, blessing and decay. Its face was sculpted from deer skull references, its eyes from human infants, its breath from fog recorded on cold mornings. The team wanted the creature to feel familiar but unknowable. When it walks, the grass blooms and dies within seconds, representing time itself moving under its hooves. Animators debated for weeks how slowly it should move. The final decision, slower than breath, faster than thought. The eerie silence before it appears wasn't scored by music. It's the sound of everything holding its breath. Its neck, stretching unnaturally long, was intentionally discomforting. It forces the audience to confront beauty that defies logic. The spirit isn't God, it's the sum of all living things, a being beyond good and evil. In that sense, it's not a monster at all, but a mirror. The studio poured every resource into this film. Artists slept beside their desks, surviving on instant noodles and tea. Thousands of frames were scrapped after the director decided they lacked emotional depth. Assistant animators remember entire nights spent redrawing San's eyes to convey grief instead of anger. Some artists collapsed from exhaustion. Now, the strain was so severe that producers considered delaying indefinitely, but the director refused. He said the forest demanded completion. When it was finally done, many swore they'd never work on another film again, and yet most returned. They said once you've seen that forest come alive, you can't unsee it. It changes you. Although it's a fantasy, every weapon in the film was designed using real museum references. The iron ball muskets, the curved swords, the arrows, each matches authentic craftsmanship. The director insisted that even mythical wars obeyed human logic. Animators studied how old black powder guns kicked back, how blades reflected sunlight differently depending on their temper, and how arrows flexed mid-flight. The goal wasn't to glorify violence, but to ground it. When a weapon fires, it's not cartoonish, it's tragedy made mechanical. Even the clinking of spent shells was layered with real metallic tones recorded from antique weaponry. The film's realism makes every act of destruction hit harder, because it reminds us that progress is always built from the ruins of precision. The studio worried audiences wouldn't understand the story's gray morality. There are no clear heroes or villains. But the director refused to make it easy. He said real life doesn't give us villains. It gives us choices. The wolves destroy, but only to survive. The townspeople build, but at nature's expense. The spirit kills, but only to restore balance. Every side is right and wrong. This refusal to moralize confused early test viewers, but thrilled critics later. Even the score was written to avoid sentimentality. No triumphant finales, just quiet closure. The film doesn't teach lessons, it forces reflection. Its greatest message is that coexistence means constant negotiation, not peace. And that's exactly why it still feels relevant. It's not a fairy tale, it's an ancient truth disguised as one. The Nightwalker, the towering, translucent god who walks across the mountains, was among the most difficult sequences ever attempted. Over 80 artists collaborated to bring it to life. They painted transparent watercolor layers for its body, airbrushed moonlight for its glow, and used multiple exposure photography to simulate movement. Each frame required 2 days of work. Its design was inspired by the Japanese concept of yokai, spirits that are both protector and destroyer. When it moves, the world bends with it. The director described it as a god too large for human prayer. Its stillness before dawn, its shimmer of melancholy, those came from the animators themselves, many of whom said they cried during its completion. If that transformation scene gave you goosebumps, leave a comment below. It remains one of animation's most haunting triumphs. Unlike most animated films that used artificial dyes, this one used real mineral and organic pigments to paint blood and skin tones. Artists experimented with crushed iron oxide and vermilion to make the blood appear alive under different lighting. Underwater or moonlight, it shifts from crimson to brown, a visual nod to nature's cycle of decay. Every drop was applied on transparent acetate, then layered for texture. The result was startling realism. The director demanded blood that felt ancient, as if drawn from the earth itself. Even today, restoration teams use digital color matching to preserve those tones precisely. That's why the violence feels tactile, because it literally came from natural pigments, just as every life in the story comes from nature's palette. The scene where the great forest spirit collapses isn't just animation, it's meditation. The team studied videos of dying animals, focusing on the silence that follows the final breath. No music, no dialogue, just slow surrender. The body of the spirit was drawn with careful decay, grass browning, petals wilting, water rippling back to calm. To animate the moment the head falls, they layered 20 transparent sheets to show the dust lifting like memory itself. It was meant to symbolize not tragedy, but release, a return of energy to the world. Many viewers cry during this scene without knowing why. It's because the animators captured death as peace, not horror. The moment the sun rises again, it isn't victory, it's balance restored. Although computers were introduced during production, the director forbade their use for clouds and natural phenomena. He said clouds have souls, and machines can't feel them. Artists instead painted over 400 sky variations, each representing a mood. Morning clouds were painted in diluted watercolor for tenderness. Battle scenes used dense gouache to create suffocation. Even the transition between day and night was achieved by photographing the same background under shifting filters. The result gives the sky emotional continuity. You can feel its weight changing with the story. The clouds aren't background, they're silent witnesses to the war between worlds. Composer Joe Hisaishi structured the score around natural respiration cycles. Each track alternates between tension and calm, inhale and exhale. The percussion mimics a human heartbeat during conflict. The strings stretch like sighs in peace. Even the flutes were recorded outdoors to catch wind harmonics. The main theme isn't a melody, it's a pulse. When the forest dies, the rhythm fades. When balance returns, the pulse resumes. And the entire soundtrack mirrors the ecosystem's struggle to breathe under human weight. This is why rewatching the film feels like re-entering a living being. You're not hearing music, you're listening to the planet breathe. For the closing moment, when San and Ashitaka part ways, the studio enforced total silence in the workspace. No music, no talking, no air conditioning. Artists drew in absolute stillness to translate that quiet emotion onto paper. The gestures were minimal, just a nod, a glance, a smile, but they carried the weight of everything lost and learned. The absence of sound helped animators capture restraint instead of sentiment. The ending doesn't promise reunion, it honors distance. That silence you feel isn't emptiness, it's respect. It's the forest exhaling, the world continuing, and love existing quietly beyond possession. The director forbade cutting corners. Every brushstroke mattered. Background artists meditated before painting scenes involving the forest spirits. They treated the process as ritual, not work. Studio staff often described the experience as spiritual exhaustion, like painting prayers instead of pictures. Even the cleanup team worked barefoot to avoid scraping cells. When the final print was delivered, the studio held a small ceremony of gratitude to nature. They bowed before the screen and whispered thanks. That reverence is what you feel while watching, the sensation that this isn't just art, but offering. Every frame breathes with the humility of creation itself. Conclusion. Princess Mononoke is not just a film. It's a living contradiction, a poem about destruction that creates beauty. Every sound, brushstroke, and heartbeat carries the weight of centuries of human struggle with the natural world. It doesn't ask you to choose sides. It asks you to listen. To the forest, to the gods, to your own shadow. Behind its hand-painted stillness lies a roar that never fades, the voice of balance calling us home. Which fact surprised you most? Drop your answer below, share this story with a fellow Ghibli fan, and remember, the forest always remembers who listens.